Now to start the setting of the play in 8 to 10 lines, about some lines about that's playwright as well as the play. Then after to deal with everything accordingly, as has been dealt with from the very beginning. So now to start, the play of the Western world is a three-act play. It is indeed a three-act play. Act 1, Act 2 and Act 3, written by Irish playwright and folklorist. Irish playwright and folklorist John Singh in 1907. John Singh, set in a pub. So that play is set in a pub. Pub means an establishment for the sale of beer and other drinks. An establishment for the sale of beer and other drinks, and sometimes also food to be consumed on the premises. Everything is available at a very reasonable rate. So nowadays stands everywhere, available everywhere. At any moment one can enter and make merriment, becoming cheery and merry. Well, sure, set in a pub. Set in a pub. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So set in a pub in Western Ireland in the early 1900th century. In the play tells the story of a young man. Sure, so the present play uh, speaks about a young man who attains a hero-like status. An overall idea about the play, then after to switch over to everything as usual. Uh, who attains a hero-like status among the local villagers by telling a rousing story about having murdered his father. So rousing story. Nowadays, have you ever had who is becoming not happy, rather extremely happy whenever just discussing or delineating um, that thing that I have done all these heroic activities. Sure, a hero-like status among the local villagers by telling a rousing story about having killed or stabbed his father. He relates his story in an engaging style, telling in such a way as if all are spellbound and bewitched, and all are sitting silently and listening also mindfully. The audience are sitting silently, maintaining pin of silence and listening also mindfully. So the presentation is so amazing and so commendable or praiseworthy that all are spellbound. So he relates his story in an engaging style using an Irish dialect. Irish dialect. Dialect uh, known as Hiberno English. Known as Hiberno English. Hiberno English means Irish English, also formerly called as Anglo Old English. Hiberno means the English language spoken in Ireland. It's a language spoken or told in Ireland. So that's why it is called Hiberno English, and Irish English also uh, formerly termed as Anglo Old English, particularly told in that periphery, that is Ireland. When the play premiered means was staged. Premiered means the first public performance of a film, movie, or play. Premiered. When the play premiered means it was for the first time came into the limelight or performed at the Abed Theatre in Dublin on 26 1907. That year it was for the first time performed on the stage. Riots. So that time what happened? Whenever for the first time people started watching, it was for the first time staged on the stage or performed on the stage. At time what happened? What type of period was just going in? Riots broke out. Riots occurred as some felt the plot was immoral. Some felt that the plot was in the construction of the plot was immoral and offensive to Ireland. Whenever for the first time it came to the limelight and performed on the stage, so what occurred? At that time, riots, commotion, or that turmoil broke out as some felt the plot was immoral and offensive to Ireland. It should not have been performed that time at this critical juncture. Even so, it remains an influential work in English literary history, though it had to go through a lot of hardships, troubles, precarious conditions, ups and downs. Still, it remained an influential work in Irish literary history. So it's all about the short description of the setting and about the playwright, everything else. Because from the very beginning, I have been saying time is very short, but many things are there to deal with, though not in detail, but in nutshell, to get everything detail just after the end of the class. Okay. So again, also today we have to discuss many things, many points. So then after now to pass on to discuss the main points in 3 to 4 lines. What is the message of the playboy of the Western world? So now you knew that the time of this play or some lines about the playwright and how did it come to the limelight even amidst sorrows and sufferings, pains and pleasures, ups and downs, everything, trampling down all the obstacles, still it came and people watched it, and also it became an influential work in Irish literary work history. These are the important lines. So now to know some other important points in short. What is the message of the playboy of the Western world? What type of message that we are getting uh, or experiencing coming in contact with these so-called characters and their activities? Means coming in contact with their activities. What do they do? What do they work? To whom they like? Where do they go? And everything, starting from the beginning till the end, from the bottom to the top, everything. So, what the message of the play of the Western world? Throughout the play, the power of authority and the character's feeling about authority vacillate. Again, just listen. Throughout the play, the power of authority. How do they exercise their power? How the characters exercise their command over some other characters or exercise their power while displaying their activities in the play. Throughout the play, the power of authority and the character's feeling about authority vacillate. Vacillate means that is to keep changing your opinion or thoughts about something in a wavering condition, not static, dynamic all the time. Today speaking something, and after some time, you may change your decision and may just resort to some other talks.
So double mind
Then
person.
SS get loss account vacillate to keep changing your opinion, very simple, or thoughts about something special in a way that annoys other people. Honest, because if you are not becoming static, dynamic, if you are not 100% sure about your performance or about your presentation, then just to go on changing your opinion or version from time to time. Today something, tomorrow another thing. And after tomorrow, everything will be changed or will be changing. That
Changing
is
of
called
different opinions.
opinion. Yes, that is called vacillate. Sure. Here, what happens? The character's feeling about authority vacillate. The fact that the villagers feel impressed that Christie has killed old Mohan, whom Christie described as tyrannical and cruel, show their latent desire to challenge authority.
Sir, what is the meaning of tyrannical?
Money becoming very that ferocious or heinous. Then what genre is playboy of the Western world? Means what kind? Kind is playboy of the genre means a style of genre means a style or category of art, music or literature. A style or category of art, music or literature. That's ordinary meaning of this word genre. So what genre means kind is playboy of the Western world. What type or category or style is playboy of the Western world? The playboy of the Western world, so it's a comedy, there's no doubt in it, in three acts by the present playwright Sinch, published and produced in 1907. It's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. Masterpiece means a work of outstanding artistry, skill or craftsmanship, or workmanship. Masterpiece means a work of outstanding workmanship or skill, outstanding, completely different than that of others. Well, so that is, it is a masterpiece of the Irish literature or a NASA. Because amidst many sorrows and sufferings, still it came to the limelight, and it was well accepted by one and all at the outstanding performance of the playwright. So it is a masterpiece of the Irish literature renaissance. This most famous of Synge's work fused fused the patois of ordinary Irish villagers with Synge's sophisticated rhetoric language. How? Just explaining the most famous of Synge's works. Almost all his works fused. Fused means joined or blended to form a single entity. Here the meaning of this word fused is joined or blended to form a single entity. Okay, sure. The most famous of Synge's works fused the fused the that's the Patois of ordinary. Patois means a form of language spoken by people in a particular area. So it's one type of language spoken by a particular area that is different from the standard language of the country. So it's completely different from the present ongoing standard language of the country, but told by particular spoken by particular people in particular area, spoken by particular people type of people in a particular area. Patois. So fuse the patois of ordinary Irish villagers which is seen sophisticated rhetoric like. Okay, so that's all about the what uh, category of art or literature the present discussion is, and what is the message of the playboy of the Western world, and the setting and some lines about the playwright also, everything in short. So now to know about the characters, some important characters in short. So the list of characters that we come across in the present play, the playboy of the Western world. Playboy is what the meaning of the play. Playboy means the very ordinary meaning of this word playboy, as you know, a wealthy man who spends his time enjoying himself. That's a proverb cult being uh, a healthy child of a wealthy parent, being a healthy child of a wealthy parent, the child spoiled. So that the playboy means a wealthy man who spends his time enjoying himself, especially one who behaves irresponsibly or has many casual sexual relationships with others all the time because endowed with a lot of money, spending money lavishly, extravagantly, carelessly. So at any moment, he can do anything as per his will and wish. Nobody is there to stand as an obstacle in his or her path. So, the very first character that we come across and also happens to be the protagonist of the play, that is Christopher Mahon. Christie, we call him as Christie. Christopher Mahon or Christie. The protagonist of the play and the titular playboy. And the titular means having a particular title or stature, but no real power or authority. Nominal head. That's the very simple meaning. Another meaning is nominal head, not the real head. Titular. He has no real power or authority. Nominal power. So, the protagonist of the play and the titular playboy, a young man from a rural farming village, born and brought up in that locality, a young man from a rural farming village in Ireland. Christie presents himself as heroic, presents himself, but not actually, but presents, that is disguising himself, a blessing in disguise. So, Christie presents himself as heroic, means exaggerating, and brave, and also ingratiates, and also ingratiates. Ingratiates means to do things in order to make somebody like you. To do things in order to make somebody like you, especially somebody who will be useful to you. Okay. So prepare another one to follow your footprints. That is called ingratiates. Presents himself as heroic and brave and ingratiates himself with the village women. Means always tries his best to make the village women happy. Not happy, rather happier were happiest, telling enchanting stories, mind-blowing and heart-touching stories. So he enjoys his status as a celebrity among the villagers. Who? That fellow. No, enjoys the enjoys his status as a celebrity among the, because the villagers like him the most and the best, because he, he, he just treats them in such a way, in such a manner that almost all are happy. So he enjoys his status as a celebrity among the villagers, and indulges in his vanity, source of his uh, pride, though he tries to hide his threat from his admirers. Means all the time goes on extolling, praising, speaking in lines in favor of him, rather never speaks his odds and oddities or lacunas. His use of poetic, lyrical language and storytelling is the main quality that the women admire. So this is the only reason why do the women admire him, praise him, and just like him. A very simple reason. His use of poetic lyrical language, because all the time expression or exchanges his views, opinion, thoughts, ideas, everything in a quite poetic expression or presentation, and also the storytelling method also is very eye catching. That's why, taking all these things into account, the villagers or the village women admire and praise him all the time. Because this is all about that character. So now, come on to discuss Margaret. Margaret, or its another name is known as Pigeon. Pigeon. Pigeon Mike. Margaret or Pigeon Mike. The 20-year-old daughter. The 20-year-old daughter of Michael. The 20-year-old daughter of Michael. A wild-looking beauty, a wild-looking beauty, Pigeon is known to be more assertive and temperament than the other girls in the village. Sure, there are many girls, but she's completely different than that of others in temperament or in his comportment and deportment. Though engaged to be wed to Sean Kyok, though engaged to be wed to Sean, another character, Sean Kyok, a young farmer of that village, completely all the time he remains busy with that young man, or sorry, young farmer of that village, and also already decided to marry him. So though engaged to be wed to Shan Kyok and actively planning their wedding, actively, not passively, actively, inwardly planning. Okay, so after some days or after some weeks or after some months, we are going to marry. So our marriage negotiations are going to be fixed up. So in these ways, inwardly as well as outwardly also, both are doing that work. Pigeon emotionally responds to History's poetic language emotionally responds to, because she already knows that almost all the villagers admire my father. My father. She can't go beyond that. She can't violate that rule. Also, she has to accept and acknowledge that spirit. So, emotionally, a response to Christie's poetic language, hinting that she has emotional needs that are not being met in her relationship with Sean. So then widow queen. So only some 4 to 5 lines, because to discuss that particular character of Christie, to know a lot about that person, we have to uh, present many lines or think of many lines. But no time is there, so only 5 to 6 lines. That's enough. Everything is there inside. So now widow queen, a village woman of about 33 years. Margaret or Pigeon Mike is 20-year-old, 20-year-old, but he's a 33-year-old of age, who is known to have killed her husband. Widow Queen is very famous for killing her husband. Almost all the people know her for that activity, who is known to have killed her husband. A romantic foil for pigeon. A romantic foil for pigeon. Widow Queen is gritty yet shrewd and tries to help both Sean and Kirsty over the course of the play. Very good, no doubt in it. There's no doubt in it. But helps is a helping minded. She's a helping minded person, and all the time extends her hands towards the two, that is Sean and Kirsty. Christopher Mahon. Christy means Christopher Mahon, the titular playboy, or also known as the protagonist of the play. Protagonist of the play. Then Sean Keogh. So now you knew about the 3 characters: Christopher Mahon or Kirsty, whom we call as Kirsty, then Margaret or Pigeon Mike, then Widow Queen. So now about Sean Keogh. Sean Keogh. A young farmer, as well as Pigeon's second cousin. A young farmer. So many characters are there. So among all these characters, the villagers admires that man, the protagonist, the most and best, because he has got that quality and strategy or a trick how to mold the villagers, presenting in a quite funny way. A young man, as well as Pigeon's second cousin and fiance. Fiance means the man that a woman is engaged to. A man that a woman is engaged to. That is the meaning of this word fiance. So that is Sun Kyuk, the second cousin and fiance. Pigeon's fiance means Pigeon Mike is engaged with that man, with that young farmer, Shankyo. son is deeply religious. That person is deeply religious, just as a critical uh, bent towards a bent of mind towards religion. So she is deeply religious, as evidenced by his obsession with father, with father Aureli, Aureli's approval, and is seen by the other villagers as cowardly. Sean is the only person in the village who is not impressed by Christie's status, but he is still intimidated. But he is still intimidated. Intimidated means uh, to frighten or threaten somebody so that they will do what you want. So he had got that ability or quality to threaten or frighten the Christ because he had known everything about Christ. So he had no fear towards him. But he's still intimidated by Christ's arrival and fears losing pigeon to him. Because he knows that if Christy comes, almost all the villagers admire like him, so pigeon will be inclined to that man. Because I'm in love with, I've been engaged to her also, so I can't get. My aims and ambitions may not be fulfilled. So he's a little bit frightened, knowing the arrival of that protagonist called Christ or Christopher Mahon. Then old Mahon. Christy's, Christy Mahon's father. Old man is Christy Mahon's father. Christy describes old Mahon as a bully who is often drunk and violent. Sometimes Christy Mahon's father, old Mahon, drinks and seen all the time in a drunken state, taking alcoholic all the time, and becomes violent. Perhaps uses some harsh language or bitter language or scolds anyone harshly or doesn't have some sort of untoward situations after taking alcohol. So when old Mahon appears, means Christy's father appears, he is determined to seek revenge on Christy for his attempted murder. He displays his love for Christy. Because the man is a drunkard, his father is drunkard, so his son tries to kill his father, but father loves his son the most and best also. So then Michael James, the owner of the village pub, the owner of the village pub and Pigeon's father. Michael James is Pigeon's father and owner of the pub. Pub means that is just pub means an establishment for the sale of beer or liquor, and also food is available there. Not only that, but also uh, everything is available. Everything starting from top to bottom nowadays. So that is the owner of the village pub and Pigeon's father. Michael is capricious. Michael is capricious. Capricious means that is given to sudden and unaccountable changes of mood or behavior. At changing behavior, but static, dynamic behavior. So Michael is capricious and changes loyalties without much thought. All about that character. Then Phil, Philly Cullen, a farmer and one of Michael's friends. a farmer and one of Michael's friends. Michael's Michael James' friends. Philly shows his suspicion of Christie earlier than the other villagers. So many villagers were there, but Phyllis uh, was all the time suspecting uh, whom? Michael James. Then Jimmy Farrell, a farmer and one of Michael's friends, one of Michael James' friends, or the friends. Then Sarah Tunsley, a village girl who gives Christy a gift of dog eggs from her family's farm. Because you know that uh, almost all the villagers are highly pleased and impressed by Christie's version, so they like and also sometimes uh, haunts his residents. Almost all the village people they like Christie and also like his residents. So all the time they visit. I mean, they come to visit him. Not only alone, whenever they come with many gifts what's available in their village and handsomely to Christie. So that is Jimmy Farrell, a farmer and one of Michael James' friend. All their village farmers. Then Sarah, a village girl, who gives Christie a gift of dog eggs from her family's farm. Sarah, along with Widow Queen, attempts to help Christie escape towards the end of the play, but he refuses her help. Who these two girls, Sarah and Widow Queen, they try to help Christie, but and also escape towards the end of the play. But he returns her help. But he refuses. Christie refuses their help. Then Susan Brandy, a village girl who gives Christie a gift of butter. Because now all the village boys and girls have come to meet Christie with some gifts in their hands and reaching their hand of him. Then Honor Blake, a village girl who gives Christie a gift of cake. Because everything is available in the village, so they come with all these things to meet him. Then Nellie, a village girl who gives Christie a hen for laying eggs. You see, these are the gifts gifted by to Christie by these four village girls. Sarah, then Susan, Honor, and Nellie. So these four girls come to visit him with some things that are available in their country, sorry, in their village. So that's all about the list of the characters that are depicted in nutshell. So now to know that's the Act One. What's happening in Act One? What happens in Act One? So now to know So see that Act 1 show the entire play is set in a public house on the wild coast of Mayo. I mean the events of this play, the play of the Ocean World, the events of this play or the entire play is set in a public house on the wild coast of Mayo. The scene is a country public house, Shebin. Shebin means also pub, an unlicensed establishment or private house selling alcohol. That is called Shebin, an unlicensed establishment or private house, just like nowadays happening. Even if people staying beside our, very adjacent to our house, selling all these. Because unlicensed, they have not got license. So an unlicensed establishment or private house selling alcohol and other things also illegally. So that is called, this scene is a country public house, Shebin. Sometimes liquor is illegally served there outside the licensed hours. License means, suppose you might have seen the timing to reach the office as 10 a.m. and again vacating the place before 5, or the exact timing is 5 p.m. So in between, what you do is legal. But beyond that, if you stay there and work, overwork, overtime, so nobody is that is responsible for that. If you are working after that appointed time, a stipulated period, if you stay and do something, so it is illegal and you are not getting anything for that as per the law. So here, sometimes liquor is illegally served, not legally, as as per the law, rules and regulations of the government. So illegally served there outside the licensed hours. Certain articles of daily use are also on sale there. Not only liquor or alcohol, also other things are there. Other things. That is, so what are these other things? That is barrels, jugs, table, bench, open fire is there, and small interior room. Everything is available there. Not only alcohol, also different types of articles are sold there. Where? In this sea bin. In this sea bin. Sea bin or pub. Pub. Michael James, a widower, is the owner of the sea bin. Michael James, a widower, is the owner of the sea bin. Means is the owner of this and unlicensed establishment and selling everything illegally. His grown-up daughter named Pigeon Mike, Pigeon Mike, his grown-up daughter named Pigeon Mike assist her father in running the public house. Okay, usually if your father is working somewhere, if you know how to do that work, so you have to go and assist him in that work for some hours. So the same thing here happens for both. As father has opened the shop and all time father is not available, so whenever father is absent, so that goes and stays there and just does the work of the father. Pigeon is 20-year-old. As earlier I told, she's 20-year-old. Pigeon Mike and Sean Kyog are engaged in a conversation when the play begins. Whenever the play starts, both are seen in engaging some sort of conversations. Sean is Mike's fiance. Fiance is woman. So you know that the fiance means Fiance means that is the man that a woman is engaged to. So fiance means a woman that a man is engaged to. A woman that a man is engaged to. Fiance and fiance. So Sun Kyok is Pigeon Mike's fiance. Pigeon Mike informs her fiance means Sun Kyok that she would have to spend the night alone because her father is going to attend awake, means keeping awake with others by the side of a dead body. Someone is lying dead there, or declared dead. So father is not right now. She is not. Sorry, he is not at home. So you come and we both have to spend the night alone here because father is absent. So this type of conversation just goes on between the two in their father's absence because uh, father is there watching the dead body. She shows her dislike for son. She contemptuously addresses him as a she-bean. In spite of his riches, son is a cowardly fellow. Besides, he is overdue under the influence of Father Riley, the local priest. Pigeon doesn't have a sound opinion about the other young men in his place also. She complains that she might face some other she might face some danger from unscrupulous fellows roaming about here and there. So in her father's absence for the night from home, the stupid son doesn't follow his finance intention. Actually, Pigeon had a evil intention. Now she's calling Shan to his residence, means she has to do some harm. But Shan is unaware of that. Shan has or had no idea about that. So Pigeon shows her hatred for Widow Queen. Sorry. So he doesn't offer to spend the night with her. So Shan didn't give his consent uh, to spend the night with her. He rather asks her if he should bring Widow Queen to stay with her tonight. So Pigeon is asking and telling him to come here, but instead Shaw is asking whether we are coming with the Widow Queen or not. You rather invite that fellow, then I may go and I may reach you in time and we will spend the night. So Pigeon shows her hatred for Widow Queen who had murdered her husband. As you know earlier that Widow Queen had Widow Queen had murdered her husband. Therefore, he declined to stay with Pigeon for the night at the Shebin, since that was a sinful act. As it's sinful act, so Sean declined his offer, declined her offer, and didn't rely on his version, rather declined or reject her idea as it was a sinful act. So many more lines are there about uh, Act 1. So we can go to discuss all this in such an Act 2 to start to act. So the next morning, 4 girls from the village, Shara, Susan, Nelly, and Honor, came to see Christy wanting to meet the man who killed her father. So now Christy has already discussed everything before the village girls, has already discussed everything before the village girls. That is why the village girls like him the best or admire him the best because he has got that quality of storytelling method or poetic and lyrical language. So now the act two just happens next morning because John declines the offer and rejects the idea of the pigeon to stay with him that night. So next morning, Act two, the activities of or the scenes of Act two occur. And the next morning, four girls from the village, named as Shara, Susan, Nelly, and Honor, came to see Christy, wanting to meet the man who killed her father. How brave he is! How fantastic and brave and challenging, dashing he is! Because killed his father. No one likes to kill his father, but that man has killed his father. So we must go to see him. We must come in contact with him and we must have a discussion or exchange our thoughts and feelings with him. So taking all these things into consideration, so these four girls from the village rushed towards uh, towards Christie's village to meet him, along with some gifts also, as earlier discussed. So they all offer him presents and admire his brave act. They all offer him presents and admire his brave act. When the widow queen arrives, she enters she enters Christy to tell him when the widow queen arrives, she entreats means uh, request him earnestly. That is called an earnest request. Entreats. She requests earnestly to whom Christie to tell him all the details of the murder because widow queen knows everything. Whenever a widow queen in, uh, arrives or enters, she entreats Christie to tell them all the details of the murder. Christie takes great pleasure in telling the story and afterwards all call him a hero. So this is the brave act. This is one of the most bravest, not brave, bravest act. So now that Christie speaks everything before all the village girls. I elicit the truth. So hearing that the brave act, almost all the village girls reached there with some gifts, also admired a lot, praised him a lot, and eulogized him a lot also. When Pigeon arrives, she chases everyone out and angrily orders Christy to work. She tries to scare him. She tries to scare him away from talking. She tries to scare him away from talking to the village girl. By suggesting that they might tell the police. The village girl might tell the police everything. So you needn't discuss everything before them. Only some pertinent or relevant points. Just go on discussing and leave others whenever time requires or time permits or at the hour of need. We have to again disclose. So it's not the time to discuss everything, because if you do that, we have to expect many things. So arrives and tells pigeon her sheep are in a neighbor's garden, and she runs out. Sean then tries to convince Christy to accept a passage to America, admitting that he fears Christy will interfere with his plans to marry Pigeon. So all these untoward situations occur. Christy refuses the ticket but accepts the new clothes. Sean has the brought him. The widow queen soon convinces the despondent Sean that she will marry Christy and so clear the way for him with Pigeon. So in these ways, all these incidents are happening quite miraculously. Just as Christy begins to believe himself to be the hero, all claim he is. Not only one villager, but also almost all the villagers claim him to be the hero. After listening the brave act, means how did he murder his father? How did he murder his father? So he spots his father and hides from him. Just as Christ begins to believe himself to be the hero, all claim he spots his father and hides from him. Mohan explains to the widow queen that Christy hit him but he recovered Mohan, then characterizes his son as a coward and the laughing joke of every woman, where four baronies meet. In an effort to save Christy, the widow tells Mahon that he has gone over the hills to catch a steamer. After Mahon leaves, Christy comes out at hiding and admits that he had mistakenly thought to kill his father. When he expresses the desire to finish the job, the widow is shocked. Christy, however, reaffirms his love for Pigeon. So in these ways, we come to an end to Act 2, then Act 3, then Act 3, then Act 3. Later that day, Jimmy and Philly arrive at the pub. Jimmy and Philly arrive at the pub, disguising Christie's mastery of the village games and sports and his new role as playboy of the Western world. Soon Mahon arrives and the widow tries to convince Jimmy and Philly that Mahon is a raving lunatic and not to pay attention to him. But as Mahon tells his story, The two men become convinced at its veracity, means knowledge, and they point Christie out to him. After just having won all the day's trophies, Christie tells Pigeon of his love for her in poetic terms. Because you know from the very beginning, Christie is expert in presenting poetic expressions, poetic languages. That's why people like him. So while expressing her love for Pigeon also, he uses that poetic expressions. Tells Pigeon, Pigeon returns his devotion after some disagreement. After some disagreement, Christie convinces Michael that Pigeon should marry him and not Sean. So after a lot of uh, trials and tribulations or odds and oddities, so marriage negotiations is going to be fixed up between Christie and Pigeon, not Sean, because Pigeon's fiance was also Sean. But now both arrived at a conclusion that what's going to happen, that the marriage negotiation of Christie and Pigeon is going to happen now. When the three return to the pub, means Christie, Mahon, and Pigeon. Christie's son and Pigeon, Christie's son Kyok and Pigeon Mike return to the pub. Mahon confronts Christie and begins to beat him. Mahon, you know about Mahon? Mahon begins to beat him. Initially, Christie denies that Mahon is his father. Initially, Christie denies that Mahon is his father, but the crowd, along with Pigeon, soon turns against him. When Pigeon calls him an ugly liar, it threatens to finish the job he has started and goes after his father with a club. The crowd think he has really killed him this time and so calls for him to be hanged. After they bind him, Pigeon burns his leg. So in these ways, many things are there in this act third. Needless to go through all this. So in 4 to 5 lines, just we are going to conclude the present ongoing scene. When his father appears at the door and sees what the crowd has done to his son, Mahon tells Christie to turn his back on the villainy of Mayo and the fools is here. Fools is here. The two depart, Christie confidently swaggering out the door. It's moving here and there in the corridor when Son insists that he and Pigeon are now married. Pigeon can now marry. Pigeon boxes his ear and laments. Oh my grief, I have lost him surely. I have lost the only playboy of the Western world. Because you know from the very beginning that Pigeon didn't like Christie, so at last Pigeon fell in love with Son and also married him, uttering this particular expression, oh, my grip, I have lost him surely. I have lost the only playboy of the Western world. So with these words, I'm going to conclude the present uh, discussion at the playboy of the Western world. So what is to be taught next class? So I left some important questions also today about this present discussion. So because it has some important three to four questions also are there. Some important questions, some opt-quoted exam-oriented questions, but no time is there. So later on we'll discuss about these important questions. So tomorrow to start, tomorrow,
Yes, sir.
Pygmalion.
Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Sauce Pygmalion. Okay. Tomorrow, so 6, 7, and 8. So I have to again take 2, 3 more classes tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and the last one is block 8 on Saturday perhaps. Okay. So with this, I'm concluding again to meet tomorrow with this new discussion that is Sauce Pygmalion. Okay. Thank you all. Uh, why is it called Pygmalion? Why is it called Pygmalion? At first, you have to know that. Or what does the name suggest? The title itself suggests, what does the title itself suggest? Or why is it called Pygmalion? So Pygmalion is named after a legendary king of Cyprus. So it is named after a legendary king of Cyprus who has a sculpture. He cultivated his loneliness in the creation of an ivory statue. The statue turned to be that of a stunning woman. So he cultivated means he just built his loneliness in the creation of an ivory statue, and all on a sudden that statue turned to be that of a stunning woman. So beautiful that, so nice and so eye-catching that Pygmalion fell in love with that statue. Passing that, he fell in love with that statue and named it Galatea, the sleeping love. So this is that's why it is called the play Pygmalion. It is a play by George Shaw's. It is a play by G.B. Shaw that tells the story of a poor young flower girl who has been disrespected and overlooked because of her appearance and the dialect she speaks. Sometimes also in our society, people just face a lot of difficulties because of these 2 to 3 words. They are seriously overlooked and disrespected because of their appearance and dialect they speak. So also here the same case is meant for uh, poor and young flower girl. Theme of Pygmalion. It explores how social identity is formed. It explores how social identity is formed not only through patterns of speech but also through one's general appearance. Not only speech but also one's appearance. Both decide one's social identity, one's social status, but also through one's general appearance. Not only speech, but also one's appearance. Much like speech, one's physical appearance signals social status. One's physical appearance, not from speech only, but from just going through one's physical appearance, it can be uh, concluded that whether he's good or bad, he's having something or nothing. Then why is so called Pygmalion that I just presented now? What kind of character is Pygmalion? What kind of character is Pygmalion? He is an elderly gentleman of the amiable military type. He is an elderly gentleman of the amiable military type, and throughout the play demonstrate a generous and courteous nature. Throughout the play, that character demonstrates a generous and courteous nature, particularly noticeable in his treatment. Means we know it from his treatment. He was very generous and courteous also. Of Elizabeth, both has a flower girl and a lady. Now Elizabeth simultaneously have the two roles most at the same time. At first acts as a flower girl and then primarily acts as a flower girl, then secondarily acts as a lady. So it was first, that play was first, which was written in 1913, such play Pygmalion, which was written in 1913 and opened in London in 1914. Just after 1 year, it came to the limelight, explores the relationship between elocution teacher, Professor Henry Higgins, and Courtney Flower Girl, Elijah Doolittle. Then what is the moral of the lesson? In 3 to 4 lines. These are the basic or main elements of that particular discussion. Then after, as usual, we have to discuss or go through. The moral theme of Pygmalion. Main theme Pygmalion, that's the myth, is the artist's love of his own creation. Artist's love of his own creation. And from the very beginning, you knew how did he just create, because he was a sculptor, and he cultivated his loneliness in the creation of an ivory statue. And the statue turned to be that of a stone man, so he fell in love with that woman. So that myth is the artist's love of his own creation. Pygmalion becomes so infatuated. Pygmalion becomes so infatuated with his that he begins to treat it as if it were a real person. Actually, it is not a real person, it's a sculpture. But he was so obsessed with it that he treated it as a real person. Another important theme, common in Greek mythology, is the equation of physical beauty with perfection. So it's a play written by Shaw that depicts the transformation of a working class flower girl into a lady of high society with the assistance of two linguists. And later just I'm discussing the name of these two linguists. Who are they? And how do they, or how did they help this particular girl
Sir,
to great
the
extent.
name of the place Pygmalion and what is the meaning of the word?
So I told Pygmalion. Pygmalion means it's named after legendary king of Cyprus who was a sculptor that man cultivated his loneliness in the creation of an ivory statue. The statue turned to be that of a stunning woman, so beautiful and so elegant and so eye-catching that that fellow fell in love who made that statue out of ivory, uh, fell in love with it and named it Galatea, the sleeping love. Okay, so why is it called Pygmalion, or what does the title itself suggest? What you mean to say? So in this 4 to 5 lines, you have to explain it in this way. How is it
Yes,
called
sir.
Pygmalion? So now that the characterization, a list of the characters, list of the characters. So just describing the characters in short, only by giving you 3 to 4 lines. Then after you have to discuss means facts in short also. Then after the questions, if possible, time permits. Sure, otherwise we onwards. Now the very first character is Elijah Doolittle. Elijah Doolittle is the main character in the story. She's the main character in the story. She's first introduced and unpolished. She's first introduced and unpolished, unmouthed flower, but is transformed into a beautiful woman. So at first we come across these two qualities. He was an unpolished, foul mouth, means doesn't know how to deal with others or how to behave with others. Very raw. At first he was very raw, immature one in his presentations or while dealing with others and selling flowers. And how all on a sudden or after some time that lady became a beautiful woman. So we'll know everything just later on from the act-wise descriptions. Then Professor Higgins. So now you knew these 4 lines about Elijah Doolittle. Is the main character in the story. She's the first introduced an unpolished foul-mouthed flower, but is transformed into a beautiful woman later. Then Professor Higgins is a linguist who believes he can transform Elijah Doolittle into a duchess. Duchess means an affectionate form of address used by man to a girl or woman. An affectionate form. An affectionate form of address used by man to a girl. Duchess. So Elijah Doolittle into a duchess in 6 months. This was the duty of that man, Professor Higgins, is a linguist. Means a person skilled in foreign languages or a person who studies linguistics is known as linguist. Who studies linguistics is known as linguist. So that linguist Higgins helped that main character Elijah Doolittle into a duchess in 6 months. He is an intelligent man, but also disrespectful to others, despite their social class and extremely arrogant. He is an intelligent who that man Higgins is a very knowledgeable one, an intelligent one, but also disrespectful. Perhaps doesn't know how to respect others. Sometimes all and sudden becomes angry and expresses her anger and wrath over others just for a petty matter. So that's why it is called, uh, but also disrespectful to others despite their social classes and extremely arrogant. So these are the lines about that man. Then third, Colonel Pickering. Colonel Pickering.
Sir, what is the meaning of Colonel Pickering?
So it's a name. So he's a linguist. He's a linguist. Both Higgins and Pickering are both friends. They try serious steps or take serious steps to change or to bring a complete change in Elijah Doolittle. Because at the very outset, that lady was unpolished, uh, never knows how to respect others, how to behave others, ill-minded fellow, but they just tried a lot for her, and at last these two persons became successful and gave her a new life. Means transformed in from that previous former to latter. Latter means at first unpolished, now she became polished. At, at first she was foul-mouthed, now became fair-mouthed. At first she didn't know how to behave, how to deal with. Now she knew everything, how to respect, how to regard others, everything. That a complete transformation was seen in her because of these two persons, Higgins and Colonel Pickering. Sure, also he was a linguist. Colonel Pickering also is a linguist, means he studies linguistics. Who is a linguist who challenges Professor Higgins to transform Elijah Doolittle into Duchess. You see, uh, now a cruel duel arose between the two, between Higgins and Pickering. Pickering at the very outset decided to bring a lot of changes in that lady. So whenever Pickering came to the limelight or came to the scene, he also decided to took a strong decision to bring some changes in that lady. So there happened a duel. So a cold duel or mild duel between the two. Uh, Colonel Pickering wants Professor Higgins' work with Elijah and is considered and kind to her. You see, at first Higgins was disrespectful and arrogant, but this man, the second man, Pickering, is considered sympathetic, generous, and kind to others. So all about these lines are all about this man. Then Alfred Doolittle. Alfred Doolittle is Elijah's Doolittle materialistic father. Is Elijah Doolittle's materialistic father. Means all the time always wishes to gain a lot of money, to earn a lot of money, wealth and power. Exploiting or by gaining name and fame or doing any type of that foul deeds or unlawful activities. So is Elijah the materialistic father who tries to obtain money when he learns Professor Higgins is working with Elijah. Whenever he came to know that Professor Higgins has already decided to do something for that lady Elijah, so he wanted to or he tried to obtain money uh, for that. Obtain money when he learns Professor Higgins is working with Elijah. Perhaps made some deployed plot and played with them, or became a trickster, used some sort of a tricks in order to just exploit some money from them. Okay, so using different types of tricks, uh, he wanted to earn money or exploit money. Whenever he came to know that Professor Higgins is now going to work with Elijah Doolittle, means just trying to bring some changes in her, trying to just present her in the society as a aristocrat one. Then Mrs. Higgins is a Professor Higgins' mother. Is Professor Higgins' mother who disagrees with Higgins and Pickering's plan to try to change Elijah into a duchess. Okay, you see, so now at first Higgins came and decided to do some good things for Elijah Doolittle. Then after Pickering came, Colonel Pickering, he is also decided. He also made up his mind to extend his hands with that Higgins, and both have to try for the same purpose. So, knowing that Mrs. Higgins, Professor Higgins' mother, declined that offer. No, no, you don't do all these works in these ways. You never try to help them. Okay, it's very bad. So she wasn't in favor of. Professor Higgins' mother wasn't in favor of their plans. So she declined. So is a Professor Higgins' mother who disagrees with Higgins and Pickering's both plans to try to change Elijah into a duchess. Duchess should know duchess means an affectionate form of addressing or address used by a man. An affectionate means not real. Affectionate means not real, unreal. An unreal form of address used by man to a girl. So that is all about Mrs. Higgins. Means he didn't like that these two persons come forward and take some firm steps to help Elijah Doolittle in order to bring some changes in her. Then another character, Freddie Hill. Freddie first meets Elijah during a meeting. Freddie first meets Elijah during a meeting with his mother and sister, Mrs. Higgins' house. Mother and sister at Mrs. Higgins' house. Mrs. Higgins, you know, Higgins' mother is a professor of Higgins' mother. So that character at first met Elijah during a meeting with his mother and sister at Mrs. Higgins' house. He falls in love with Elijah. He falls in love with Elijah and writes letter to woo her. And writes letter to woo her. Women's to just bring him into her clause. So they are the characters. No more characters are there. Only 6 to 7 characters. Again, just recapitulating or presenting in short. Elijah Doolittle. So they are the recap of these characters. Okay. So Elijah Doolittle, Professor Higgins, Colonel Pickering, Alfred Doolittle, Mrs. Higgins, and Freddie Hill. Freddie is for Hill. So 7 characters. So when
Excuse me,
I
sir.
you hello
Sir, who was Mrs. Pierce?
Pierce.
Yes, sir. Who was Mrs. Pierce?
So full name. Pierce. Okay, I'm going to Pierce.
He is
The art. I may
he
come
is
up.
the personal maid of Higgins. Since the person made of Higgins.
Pers- Portal made of whom?
Higgins.
Made of whom?
Higgins. Henry Higgins.
Oh, Higgins.
Yes,
Higgins.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Oh. So now you came across these characters. So at first you knew some important points with 3 to 4 lines, and then now characters. So now to know the acts, 5 acts. So now to know Act One. Act One. So what do we see in Act One? What do we see in Act One? So the major theme of this play is phonetics. The major theme of this play is phonetics. Phonetics, you know, an expert or student of phonetics is called phonetician. So phonetics means just to use just words using the symbols. That is vowels, consonants, diphthongs, phonetic symbols. How to use these words? Sorry, these symbols in these words.
It is
So,
one type of mimic.
hello.
It is one type of mimic, sir.
Yes, yes. So now to know that is the actual description. That is Act One. The major theme of the play is phonetics. Means pronunciation. How if you know how to pronounce the words perfectly and correctly, all are going to give you due respect. If you do not know how to pronounce the words, how to present the words symbolically or correctly, or what type of sound that's coming from the very within, whenever you are just uttering the words. At the time of utterance, how do you utter? How do you read out the lines with proper accent and division of the parts? That is called phonetics. So the entire theme of the play revolves around phonetics. In the preface, Shaw himself points out the English have no respect for the language. The English people have no respect for the language and will not teach their children to speak it. But we take the utmost care of that, but they do not take that much of care. But at present, we give or we just illustration. They cannot spell it because they have nothing to spell it with but an old foreign alphabet of which only the consonants and not all of them. They cannot spell it because they have nothing to spell. We just utter it taking much more care, but they do not take much care of it because they are completely habituated it. They are accustomed to it from the very beginning. So, have any agreed speech value? Shaw was quite unhappy to find the English least bother about the impact of good speaking. We all the time just take steps how to speak good English, how to utter the words, or how the sounds or the sounds of or the pronunciation will be clear and audible, but they do not think of that. Who? The English people. So for that reason, Shaw is quite unhappy. For that reason only, as the English just become so careless, the English people become so careless towards that. So taking that into consideration, Shaw is quite unhappy. The result is that throughout England, the pronunciation of the Englishmen is horrible, and Englishmen in different parts of the country lay greater emphasis on the dialect than speaking English properly. They do not know how to speak English properly, rather they give greater emphasis on dialects, on dialects. Which professor That is, he found in London Cockney a useless dialect, a very rough dialect. Cockney, a useless dialect, was spoken by the people rather than English. Play's heroine, at first you knew the name of that heroine, Elijah Doolittle. So she is regarded as the play's heroine. Play's heroine Elijah Doolittle speaks this dialect, that useless dialect, meaningless dialect. Nobody just speaks using that dialect. So that dialect is told by uh, Elijah Doolittle, the heroine of this play, who is Professor Higgins, the note maker or the linguist, finds difficult on her part. So Professor Higgins, as an expert linguist, so whenever comes in contact with Doolittle, finds that she is not able to utter all these words correctly and perfectly. So he's irritated to see that the people do not take care of the proper speech. So he's a specialist, as you know, he's a specialist and believes that a gentleman is known by his speech. A gentleman is known by his speech. We can very well recognize a man only through his speech. He said that phonetics is profession as well as hobby. Phonetics must be profession as well as hobby. Means you should like it. You should like it. He can distinguish persons from their speech. He can distinguish persons from their speech. For example, an Irishman can be easily recognized by his speech. In other words, Irishmen are particular about the learning the correct speech. In England, the speech changes with distance. Particularly English people, they speak English in different manners, betraying their poor knowledge of phonetics. They know everything, but they do not give emphasis on that is how to speak. Rather, they give or the illustration dialect. Elijah turns out to be a duchess just by learning good speaking and good conduct. Because of these two characters only, they helped a lot. Higgins and Colonel, these two persons came and helped her a lot so that in no time she became a learned and respectable person in the society, woman in the society. So now just we are going to present some happenings between Professor Higgins and the flower girl. So who is here termed as the flower girl? The Elijah Doolittle. Elijah Doolittle. So at the very beginning, you knew some lines about how the English people do not take care of their English. They disrespect it. They never give stress on their speech, rather their dialect. So Professor Higgins is not in favor of that, and so also is not in favor of that. So is quite unhappy to find the English least bother about the impact of good English. The English people do not know how to pronounce the words correctly. They simply carelessly speak just like others. So whenever Professor Higgins happens to be the most important linguist and comes in contact with the flower girl Doolittle, feels everything and takes firm steps to bring a lot of changes in her. And also he becomes successful in his vision and mission. That is all about this act. Then we come across these two persons, Professor Higgins and the flower girl Elijah Doolittle. Elijah is the heroine of the play, as you know. Elijah is the heroine of the play, Pygmalion. She's a poor, ignorant slum girl, resides in a slum, small unknown village. Her English is very poor. That's Cockney dialect. It is one type of dialect. It is one type of dialect that is called Cockney dialect. A useless dialect. A useless dialect. So that dialect is told by Elijah Doolittle. But Professor Higgins doesn't like that because he was an expert linguist. So he wanted to bring some changes or give a new life to her, making him making her aware of about that English. Her English is very poor. Professor Higgins, hero of the play, is a teacher of phonetics. Is a teacher of phonetics. The science of speech. He tells the girl harshly that she should not murder English. Whenever Professor Higgins is going to converse with that girl, she plainly speaks her, you should not speak English in that way. You should not kill English. You should not murder English. God has given her speech and she can make, God has given her speech and she can make use of her talent to speak well. God has given you everything. God has given you everything. So you have to think of that. You have to just try to bring it to the limelight. You have to just present all these inherent qualities. So he reminds her that English is a very nice language. Who Professor Higgins does reminds him that English is a very nice and elegant, sweet, melodious language. So you do not know how to pronounce, how to just find out the words and how to just utter it. So your utterance and pronunciation must be correct, up to date, so that you will get a prestige in the society. Others will revere you and respect you, regard you also, if you know how to present or use the words correctly with clear accent and pronunciation. So God has given you talent, so you try to utilize that talent in proper way. Great books of the world have been written in English. Great books of the world have been written in English. The greatest dramatist of the world, Shakespeare, wrote his works in English. Milton and several other eminent poets of the world wrote their immortal poems in English. So means almost all the influential or distinguished persons of literature have left many footprints. So you go through that, their editions, their books, and try to follow everything, try to know everything, so that in no time you will be regarded as a fluent speaker, a good speaker, without any obstructions and hurdles. So, but we have to just work hard for that. You have to take pain for that, because books are available fluently everywhere, written by expert linguists, dramatists, or poets, Shakespeare, Milton, and some other well-known or famous critics. The greatest work of Christianity, the New Testament, is written in English. So why is she insulting the language? So that is the exact version of Higgins. Why are you insulting the language? Why are you uttering the words and expressions in an awkward way or insulting way? Frustrating manner. So you go through the books of the reputed authors, try to follow the phonetics, how do they utter, how do they speak, what other symbols mean for some words, and automatically, thoroughly, slowly and gradually, you can do that. You can have a thorough idea and authority over that. If you just practice it, go on doing it, continue, and your continuity must be there. Your practice must be there, and also your diligence. Practice and diligence, these two words should be incorporated so that in no time you'll be a master in that. You'll be able to speak English fluent. There is no doubt in it. So it is the version of Higgins for Doolittle, Elijah Doolittle. Why is he insulting the language? In fact, Bernard Shaw liked the English very much. Bernard Shaw liked the English very much. He left large part of wealth for research in English language to improve the alphabets and sounds. The English, however, have shown no interest in the process of making English a true language of the material world. Bernard Shaw, there's no doubt in that, has given a lot to English, but actually that type of spirit and interest we do not just get with the English people. And Professor Higgins is a master of this subject, phonetics, expert. He feels that good speech can't make person's career, class, or status. If you do not know how to present the words and expressions, how to read out the lines, how to utter, or how to pronounce, so you cannot be regarded as a good man. Or you can't accept a good career, good class, and also good status. Devoid of all this. So, if you are lagging behind all these qualities, how to speak well, how to pronounce the words well, how to use the correct dialect, everything. If devoid of everything, so you will be deprived of getting everything also. Deprived of getting career, deprived of getting class, and also deprived of getting status if devoid of these three words. If his girl Elijah continues with her horrible speech, she can never rise in her life. And also Professor Higgins just advises Doolittle a lot, tries his best how to bring a complete change, how to bring a drastic change in her. Trying, and at last becoming successful. And also speaks in these ways that if you continue that speech forever, you can't be a successful man. You can't be a successful speaker, or you can't be regarded as an aristocratic one and a wealthy one in society. Nobody will like you, all will dislike you, all will disrespect you. Also, she speaks her in this way, in a very contemptuous way. So he feels that she will die as a poor girl in slums, and also speaks in using that particular line. You have to die as a poor girl in slums. You might have seen some slums. What do they do? What do they do? Persons residing there, how do they do? What, what do they eat? Where do they go? And whom do they also contact? Everything. Every precarious life that they lead. So the slum dwellers. So also Higgins here restores or instills that type of thought in her mind that if you do not improve, if you do not try to just proceed and go forward in your mission and vision, you can't. So again, you have to retreat, come back. You have to suffer for your guilty, for your odds and oddities, for your lacunas. Everything is told by Higgins to her in order to bring some changes. So Shaw is giving his idea in this conversation that low class or high noble class doesn't depend on birth, but on poverty and the riches. But Shaw speaks that low class or high noble class, low class or high noble class doesn't depend on birth, but on poverty and riches. If you lead a life of poverty, bereft of everything, you have nothing, you don't have the basic necessities of life, that is food, clothing, and shelter, wandering here and there just for a handful of rice and other things. So you will be regarded as a inferior one. As per this Shaw's opinion, a girl with good speech and training, even though born in gutters, can show up like a duchess. Yes, a girl with good speech and training, even if born and brought up in a gutter or slum, but born and brought up in a slum, but a trained one and an excellent one, gained everything, then she will be regarded as a top one. So needless to go through other acts because there's no time. Time doesn't permit us. So now Pygmalion is Shaw's popular play. So now to start, that is so it's Shaw's popular play in which intellect and sentiments play important role. In this play, intellect and sentiment, these two words play a very important role in this present discussion. So it has several themes. We come across several themes in Pygmalion related to social standard and perception of people within a society. A few are discussed below. Social class. A very first important point of the theme of Pygmalion is social class. In the play, class is very important and characterized by how one dresses and talks. How one dresses and talks. Elijah strives for a higher social class. Strives means trying, doing hard works to get everything in society as others are getting. Through her relations with Higgins, because she believes it will give her more opportunities. Now Elijah Doolittle knew that if I accept everything or accept all the advice of Higgins and Colonel, what they speak, then in no time or today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, I will get everything. I will be available of that opportunities, or I will avail of all the amenities of life. Additionally, people treat Elijah with more dignity and care once she appears to be of a higher class. You see how fate favors. At the very outset, fate disfavored, but now after some months perhaps, he became very obedient, so she became very obedient, uh, attended the lectures given by Higgins and the second man, uh, and became very loyal also, focused on the teaching, learned everything properly, applied it in her day-to-day activities, and took a firm belief, a strong resolution at any cost, by hook or crook, I have to do it. And she, in the long run, she also became successful and became a aristocratic one, authoritative one, and completely got command over that English. But from the very beginning, it was unknown to her. She was not expert, but now she became expert only by getting proper counseling by these two persons. So now stereotypes. Gender stereotypes are prevalent, with men being viewed as more powerful and knowledgeable than women. The play also deals with class class stereotypes. Class stereotypes. As these who are higher class are supposed to be more dignified, cleaner, more polite, and of a higher, more character than those who are poor. So stereotype means a fixed idea is there in their mind. Those who belong to the higher class, those are called haves, and haves not. Those have got everything, those who do not have anything. So they are more dignified, cleaner, and more polite, and of a higher, more character than those who are poor. The play actually challenges these stereotypes and that type of thoughts that fixed in someone's mind. The people belonging to a very higher society get everything, deserve everything, but people belonging to a very lower society do not get anything. They are deprived of getting everything. So that type of stereotyped thoughts or fixed thoughts that continue in their mind. Through Elizabeth transformation and Higgins arrogance. Then appearance versus reality. Appearance versus reality. Also another theme of Pygmalion. It describes our physical and speech transformation. Elijah is the same girl that she was at the beginning of the play at heart. However, because her appearance changed, she is treated much better than she was at the beginning of the play. If we just compare the earlier and the middle and the latter, in latter she got everything. She got a lot of respect. He became a praiseworthy and commendable figure in the latter part of his life, not in the earlier part of his life. So, Pygmalion is also known as a romance. It is a romance play. Discuss. So, what is romance? As part we have to know what is romance. Romance is defined as an improbable or fanciful story containing unusual or thrilling adventures with an element or mysteriousness and passion of love as its principal theme. The hero and the heroine in a romance face a lot of obstructions in the path of their love. But in the end, they generally manage to overcome these obstructions and are ultimately united, though sometimes a tragic ending to their love isn't ruled out. Okay, they have a lot of tragic endings. They face a lot of obstacles, ups and downs, hurdles. Still, they keep patience, moves forward, proceeds on with a lot of patience and confidence, and at last they gain and get, and also they become successful. A romance can have considerable realistic elements. Romance and realism are generally regarded as representing two diverse forms of literature. Romance and realism are generally regarded as two diverse forms of literature, almost opposite in spirit. They're completely opposite in spirit. Romance is something different, and also realism is something different. Romance, on the one hand, is completely different from realism. Sure, most opposite in spirit, atmosphere of life, the novels of French writer and some other writers, in the novels of French writers and some other writers, we find a lot of examples of romance and realism. A romance can have considerable realistic elements, while a realistic story may have a number of romantic ingredients. A romance can have considerable realistic elements. Without realistic elements, you can think of any romance. While a realistic story may have a number of romantic ingredients. So the best example is the dramas of Shakespeare, which have a mixing of reality and romance. Almost all the dramas of Shakespeare are dealt with a romance and a realism. So also this present play is called as a problem play. It is a romance play, it is a problem play. So these are the long questions that we are coming across in ensuing examinations. These are to be described in more lines. So it's a problem play. It's a, full of problems are there. All the characters face a lot of problems. And at first, they arrive at a conclusion, or they take a strong resolution to sort out their problems and get it. The claim of Higgins that he can pass off that ignorant illiterate flower girl as duchess at an ambassador's garden party. He is speaking merely as a professor of phonetics, having a tremendous self-confidence in his powers of teaching and training his pupils to speak the English language properly. Here, Professor Higgins just gives 100% guarantee that if I accept her as my student, if I accept Doolittle as my student, so at any cost, I can bring some changes. or I can just do something for her by giving her constant practice. So fluence will come when one goes on speaking deliberately and repeatedly with others. So that type of that risk and responsibility is taken by Higgins towards Doolittle. When he makes this claim, when he makes this claim, and when on the very next day he agrees to the wager led by Colonel Pickering, it may seem to us that the problem in the play would be for Higgins to educate the flower girl. We should. So the risk is taken by Higgins and Colonel both. But Higgins take the utmost care of Doolittle, and at last all the credits goes to him. Because of him also, he is able to speak that language perfectly. So then after we have to uh, discuss some major themes of it's a romance play, it's a problem play. Then after we have to know the major themes of Shaw's play Pygmalion. Shaw's earnest desire for improving English language. His that deep hatred towards Cockney language, on type of useless language told by Doolittle, and his intense interest for improving English language. A drama of ideas. So Shaw is the father of the drama of ideas. He writes his plays on contemporary social, religious, political, or cultural problems. In his plays, he hits out at the social evils of the society and conventional hypocrisy. In Pygmalion, he is concerned with cultural problems of good speaking. How a person will be able to speak perfectly and clearly. And if he or she is able to perfect or clearly, they will be regarded as a good man in the society. They will be respected and revered by one and all. This was his mission and version. So one must have a thorough practice on it. As you knew now, Doolittle, how unpolished one, a barbarous one, uncivilized one, unable to speak, uneducated one, but how being helped by the two persons and particularly by Higgins got everything and a lot of name and fame in the long run at the end of the play. So so many other 2 to 3 questions are there also. Uh, so it's Shaw's most popular play in which intellect and sentiments play important role. Play very important. Intellects and sentiment. In this present play, we come across these two qualities: intellect and sentiment. Means interest. One has to show deep interest for getting anything. Professor Higgins and Colonel Pickering tried their best, showed their interest for the improvement of Doolittle, and so Doolittle did the same what they did for her. He also showed a great interest, an intense interest in acquiring or accumulating that knowledge. So it's a fusion of both intellect and sentiments. Their conflicts spark the interesting discussion in the play. Play's major themes centers on phonetics or the science of the speech and indifference of the English people towards their fine language. So nowadays, what is English people are becoming much more indifferent. They are becoming much more neutral. They never less stress or give emphasis on good English. At present, we are giving. So that precarious scene makes him very sad, unhappy. To whom? That Professor Higgins as well as G. Bishop. Professor Higgins is the hero of the play. He is an intellectual and shows Pygmalion in the play. He is an intellectual and shows Pygmalion in the play. Colonel Pickering, another expert who has worked on Sanskrit in India. Doolittle, an old character, is the father of heroine Elijah. So, no time is there again to just go through some other important questions. So, now just we are going to conclude the present discussion presenting in these ways. But these are the important questions. Discuss it as a romantic play and discuss it as a problem play and the major themes that we come across in the present play. And characterization also. Sometimes also we may come across to delineate the character of Doolittle or Professor Higgins or Pickering, Colonel Pickering. They are the major characters. Okay, so in these ways, we have to come to an end to the present discussion.